Hi guys, and welcome to Facts and Readings about the Economy, or FDN-ECON, right? So this is probably your first collegiate level economics course, and we'll try to go through everything together, all right? By the way, my name is Bernard. I will be your lecturer for the next 13, 14 weeks or so, excluding the holidays. And hopefully, we can have a really productive semester. All right, so we'll go through the table of contents for today's presentation. So essentially, there are just 5 things that I'd like to discuss with you guys at the start. Um, First, I'd like to properly introduce myself as your lecturer. Talk about a little bit about my experience and sort of what type of expertise I have. Second, I'd like to go through the course with you guys, just to sort of set those expectations on what you can get out of the course. I'll go deeper into it and discuss the course syllabus, including, the assessments, the deadlines, and all of those, nitty-gritty things that we need to go through. I'll go through the house rules, especially for the synchronous classes. And lastly, we'll go through tasks for week 1. So what do I expect you guys to do uh, in this first week? All right. All right. So, like I said, I'd like to properly introduce myself to you guys. My name is Bernardo Shella II. You can call me Bernard. I'm not particular about honorifics or titles or any of that. So, you don't have to call me sir or professor. Just call me Bernard. My first name or my nickname, whichever one you're comfortable with. So I'm a part-time professorial lecturer at the School of Economics. My main job, my day-to-day job is as a health policy consultant for different international organizations, including USAID or USAID, through the Reach Health Project and ThinkWell, which is a Washington, D.C. based think tank. I finished my Master's of Public Policy and Economic Policy from the Australian National University. I actually just got back from Australia um, in mid of 2019, so not that far ago. I have almost 8 years experience working in the public health sector, primarily in public health financing. For a good long time, I actually worked in government. But more recently, I decided to leave and primarily do development work. I have a variety of research interests, but mostly I work in the social policy space. So looking at health policy, developmental policy, migration, that type of thing. So yeah. Now, in terms of the course, essentially, FDN Econ is by design what you'd call an appreciation course. So it's really designed to introduce you guys to basic facts about the economy, providing a deeper understanding of economic problems and an understanding of how to appreciate these problems using the lens of economics. So in principle, you're expected to develop skills and ideals that will encourage you as concerned citizens to take active interest in the issues that you see on a day-to-day basis and appreciate it, um, you know, with a methodical sort of understanding of, how these things actually happen, right? Economics, for the most part, is one lens you can use to understand and appreciate the world. It is not the only lens, but it's very useful, right? Especially in terms of policy and policy action. Now, here are some basic facts about the course that we need to go through. So you're in your first term for academic year 2020 to 2021. I'm currently having 2 classes, C48 and C50. So that's both Mondays and Wednesdays from 12:45 to 2:15, and then from 2:30 to 4 p.m. Um, My bio is provided in the slide, so you can go ahead and click it if you want to know more about me and the work that I've been doing. In terms of means of contact, I'd much prefer you guys to directly message me using Anima Space. So there's a messaging option there underneath that you can just click. This is just a way for me to sort of organize your questions if you have them or your concerns, and a way for me to sort of account for each of the set of concerns that you raise to me. Um, Unfortunately, if you send me an email, I receive a ton of emails on a day-to-day basis, so there's a possibility that I won't be able to access it. So I would really recommend that you send me a direct message via Anima Space instead. My office hours is every Monday by appointment. Ideally, either email me, send me an email, send me a direct message, or send me a Zoom um, message or contact. I think that there's a way for you to contact me through Zoom too. But if it's a really urgent appointment or it's really important for you to meet with me, send me a direct message via Anima Space. That's the best option for you. Um, Now, there are 5 expected learning outcomes for the next 13 weeks or so. And ideally, upon the completion of the course, you're expected to have uh, these learning outcomes met, right? So first, we need you guys to have an ability to describe facts and issues about Philippine and ASEAN economies. Um, Essentially, we're trying to expand that to tackle other economies outside ASEAN, um, but let's see how we go. Second learning outcome is to act like an economist. So essentially build an understanding of how the world works based on economic concepts, right? And using economics as a particular lens to appreciate the world. So you're expected to be able to apply, cost-benefit thinking, marginal thinking, opportunity cost thinking, positive sum thinking, market-based reasoning, among other things, right? Um, Third learning outcome is to consistently close read university level economics material. So through this course, you will be expected to be able to read economics materials or journal articles and that type of thing. You're not expected to be able to compute them. So this isn't a math class. This is a reading class by design. Um, but yeah, in principle, we're sort of expecting you guys to have, a certain level of understanding and reading capability, at least enough to appreciate and understand economic journals. Our fourth learning outcome is for you guys to be able to write and converse with impact on topics of economic and everyday importance. And lastly, you want you guys to self-regulate so that you'll essentially take more responsibility over your own learning, right? So I know a lot of you guys just came out of senior high school. I think you were given some level of freedom in how you choose your courses there. I'm not 100% sure. Um, but here in college, you're expected to have, full control of your own learning experience. We're not high school teachers. We're not here to, discipline you guys, although, we might do that once in a while. Um, for the most part, I'm a very chill professor. I don't require a whole lot of things. But at the same time, you hold the responsibility for your own learning um, in this class. And I won't really, um, you know, um, sort of watch over you or um, watch your every move or any of that, right? So if you decide, you know, to not attend classes and stuff like that, that's perfectly on you. Just make sure that you're able to meet all of your assessments, okay? Now, for this particular course, we'll be using a mixed approach to teaching. So we'll be using both synchronous and asynchronous classes. So in a given week, you can expect one asynchronous class and one synchronous class. So this is actually why I'm recording today's lecture. It's about practice for me, as well as a way for me to sort of condition you guys to the idea that Mondays are made for asynchronous classes, while Wednesdays are made for synchronous classes. So what do we mean by asynchronous classes? Asynchronous classes are pre-recorded lectures, assigned video materials, and any of these alternative modes by which you gain knowledge and gain learning without me necessarily being there, right? So you essentially, handle your own sort of learning experience for Mondays. I will upload those materials to Anima Space, and essentially I'll assign, a lecture. I'll provide the lecture, assign you guys to watch some video materials, and I will be providing some reflection questions every week, right? I'll also put up a discussions forum per week with the questions, and I'm expecting you guys to come into the discussion forums and participate, right? Answer those questions in your own way, and try to sort of read what your other classmates are answering. Apart from that, I may also assign some tasks. So these are times wherein I'll give you guys time to meet as groups and work on your group assignments, right? So again, this is designed to introduce you guys to economic concepts um, through the lectures and to preface the assigned reading materials for the week. And essentially give you, a significant amount of space to command your own learning pace and allow you guys to engage with the material independent of me as your instructor, right? So I don't want to sort of force my own ideological leanings to you guys, if that makes sense. I'd much prefer you guys to read the material, appreciate it by yourself, and reflect on it, right, in terms of your own perspectives and values as a future economist or, as a future business leader. Now, on Wednesdays, we'll have synchronous classes. So these are face-to-face classes through Zoom. And this time around, it's particularly designed to encourage you guys to critically analyze the different types of materials that I assigned for the week, and for you guys to explore these complex economic concepts, right? And to link them into real ideas and real life contexts. Now, what will happen is, after you watch the lecture and the videos and sort of reflect on those questions and in discussion forums, the synchronous classes is a deep dive, right? So we're essentially looking at specific articles that we assign per week. We'll read through them, and then we'll try to sort of dissect those articles relative to the concepts that we learned on Mondays, right, through the lectures. This is also the space where you can ask me questions if we're not able to understand some of the economics concepts that I was talking about in the pre-recorded material. Apart from that, this is when we will have our report presentations and our live discussions. And I'll go into more detail about the report presentations later on. Now, before we jump into sort of the specifics of the course, there are certain rights that you are entitled to in my class. So first, for your own privacy, I must ask for permission at the start of the semester if we can record the lectures, right, the live lectures. And what will happen is that for our session on Wednesday, I'll ask all of you guys, everybody who's present there, if you would allow me to record that session. If anybody objects, unfortunately, I won't be able to record it. Hopefully, all of you guys grant me permission, because that allows some students who may not be able to attend classes due to like internet problems to be able to access those lectures, right? Those synchronous classes. It's not required for you guys to turn on your cameras during lectures. Probably, there are times where I won't be able to turn on my camera. And it's mostly because, bandwidth allocations is a problem that we have to sort of deal with. And at the same time, I do understand how gendered, being camera ready is, um, and that it's much harder for women to open cameras because they have to prepare more as compared to guys. So, I don't really want to force anybody into that. At the same time, you are entitled to your privacy, as I mentioned earlier. So, you don't necessarily have to share your home life with the rest of the students in the class. So, I'm not requiring you guys to turn on your cameras at any point in any of our synchronous classes. That's perfectly fine. You also don't need to inform me if you can't attend those classes. Like, it's perfectly okay if, to me, if you're not able to attend. Like I said, you need to take charge of your own learning here. So the reason why I'm okay with recording them and posting them online is that that allows you guys now to sort of access those materials when it's comfortable for you, right? Um, Attendance is not mandatory. You can choose not to attend the synchronous classes. I'd much prefer you guys attend. Yeah, but I'm not requiring it, right? You're free to choose, whether or not you want to attend the class or not. Um, and lastly, and I really want to stress this, especially because of COVID-19 and sort of how stressful the current learning environment is. If there's anything wrong, right? If there's something wrong and you're having a tough time in class, send me a message, right, in Anima Space, and let's try to resolve it. If you need an extension, just tell me. Right? I'm not that strict with deadlines, provided that you can give me some cause as to why it's justified for me to sort of give you that extension. If you do not inform me that you need an extension for your assessment, unfortunately, that will be marked as a late submission. Um, and I'll go through sort of late submissions later on once we go to the papers, specifically, the specifics about paper assessments. But yeah, if you can't submit on time, just send me a message, inform me immediately so that you won't get deducted. Okay? All right. So for this course, there are multiple requirements that you need to meet. So there are weekly reading assignments. Unlike other FDN Econ classes, I require you guys to read both reading assignments for the week. So you're normally assigned one or two readings per week, and I require you guys to read all of them, right? Um, that said, when we go to the presentations, you won't have to present both of them, and I'll go into more detail as we go along. Um, yeah, class attendance and participation is a requirement during synchronous classes, but I won't really check. Again, your it's your decision whether or not you want to attend the synchronous class or not. Activities and or supplemental materials during asynchronous classes will also be required, and I will be posting that on a week per week basis. So make sure that you check the announcements board. Fourth, you have your group assignments and submissions and your papers and essays. Okay, and I'll go through the last two items, the group assignments and the papers and essays. Now. All right, so essentially you have 5 assessments for the semester. You have 2 individual essays, a group presentation, a group summary and analysis, and a group critique essay. Okay, so let's go through each one of these assessments. And if you want more clarity, you can shoot me a message. But in truth, we'll discuss it in more detail on Wednesday. Right. So your first 2 assessments are 2 individual essays. This is basically a stand-in for your midterms and finals. They're due on the 7th week and the 12th week, right? So for both of these essays, you just need to write an 800-word paper, taking an economic concept you learned in class, and you apply it to explain and understand a particular case, phenomenon, or policy problem, right? Um, I'm requiring a minimum of at least 5 credible sources. These need to be peer-reviewed articles or magazine articles from reputable sources, journal articles, books, that type of thing. Um, and for more specific details for the individual essays, you can just check AnimaSpace. I've already uploaded the main requirements there. You have free reign to select what your topics are, which economic concept you're working with, and which case, phenomenon, or policy problem you'll be specifically talking about. So that's a lot of freedom on you guys. So I do suggest that you pick really good problems um, and really interesting ones to talk about. Um, you need to work on 2 different concepts and 2 different case phenomenons and problems, right? So the economic concept that you discussed in the first essay can't be the same economic concept that you'll discuss in the second essay. Now, apart from that, you have 3 group assignments that you need to do. First is a group presentation. So this is essentially a 20-minute group presentation that we'll have weekly. Um, so each group needs to select one of the 2 required readings per week. You prepare the 20-minute presentation. This is approximately like a 10 to 15 minute, 10 to 15 slides, PowerPoint slides, and you'll be given 20 minutes to present it during Wednesdays. And then after your presentation, essentially the group will have to answer questions and queries from the rest of the class for about 5 to 10 minutes every week. So the submissions for the group presentation, the slides itself, as well as the group summaries and analyses vary per group. So it would depend on which group you selected, which topic you have, and which week you'll be reporting it. But at the minimum, you need to submit these materials at least a day before your presentation. Next up is the group summary and analysis. So the analysis needs to be anywhere between 800 to 1,000 words per group. And you should summarize the content of the article, present the main arguments of the author, and present an analysis of the article, right? So you're looking at the evidence being used. Is it sufficient? Does it explain the phenomenon well, or does it explain the case well? Is the evidence credible in your perspective? And if it's not, are there alternative evidences available to explain it, right? So that's sort of what the group summary and analysis is. More specific rules of that can be seen in AnimaSpace. You can just log on there and take a look. The last assessment is the group critique, which is due on week 11, excuse me. And the group critique is also an 800 to 1,000 word essay written by the entire group. So the group will pick one essay written by one of their group mates, and you'll have to assess as a group whether the economic concept used was used correctly and whether there was ample evidence to suggest that it explains the phenomenon, case, or policy problem being discussed. Again, we'll sort of dive deeper into that as the weeks go. And if you have specific questions about these assessments, first refer to AnimaSpace. It's already uploaded there. But if that's not clear enough, if that's not clear still, rather, feel free to send me a message or we can discuss it on Wednesday. All right. Now, this is the weighting for each of the required outputs or assessments. So the first essay is worth 20%. The second essay is worth 30% of your grade. The group critique is worth 15%. The group summary and analysis is worth 15%. And the group presentation is worth 20% for a total of 100, right? And then that will essentially be transmuted to the 4.0 scale. So depending on how well you perform, that is the scale that we'll be using. The passing mark for this class is 60%. So um, if you get below 60%, unfortunately, you won't, you didn't pass the class. Okay. Now, in terms of the coverage for this particular course, um, we'll essentially tackle 11 different things, right? First, we'll have an intro to, thinking like an economist. What does that exactly mean? And in terms of application, what does that look like? We'll be primarily focusing on Mantley's principles of economics as our jumping off point. So we'll be tackling each of those principles as we go through the course, right? So we'll be essentially talking about 10 different concepts, essential concepts throughout the semester. So all of these are economic concepts used, um, you know, by a variety of practitioners, um, within the economic policy space. So they are trade-offs, opportunity cost thinking at the margins, incentives, and so on, right? And per week, we have one concept that we'll be tackling. And we'll be having a lecture for that week that I will prepare and upload at least a day before Monday. So that's Sunday, obviously. And then on Wednesdays will be our deep dive, right? Approaching that concept based on the readings that I assigned, as well as the group presentations, right? When you go to Animo Space, all the groupings are marked already from group 1 to group 9. So be very, very careful to make sure that you're choosing the right group and the right topic that you want to be in. So if you sign up for group 1, trade-offs, and you complete, the X number of individuals in that group, then you're automatically going to be the first group to present, right? So make sure that you're choosing the topic that you want to discuss in the sequence that you want to discuss it in with the group mates that you want, all right? You can access the groupings by clicking people, if I remember correctly, in Anima Space, and then there's a tab for groups, and then you can just click that. Um, Lastly, about the groupings, so essentially we will have 9 groups for the entire class, and there's a maximum of 5 people per group. So again, be very, very smart about who you group up with. What else? Yeah, and for each week, we're essentially tackling a different topic. So for this first week, we'll be tackling thinking like an economist. So on Wednesday, um, I will start off as the presenter. I will show you guys what I personally will be expecting in terms of your presentations. Um, and at the same time, I'll be, sort of starting off the discussion, particularly looking at, what does it mean to think like an economist. Um, Week 2 will be mostly on trade-offs. Third week on opportunity costs. Fourth week is about thinking at the margins, right? I think some of you might have encountered these concepts already, but these are essential sort of ideas that economists grapple with in terms of how they appreciate the world. So, gaining a firm understanding of these concepts and how they're applied is essential. Week 5 is about incentives, so rational choice and human behavior, right? Week 6 is about comparative advantage and specialization. We'll be tackling this from a lens of like trade and understanding trade within that context. Um, Week 7 is about markets. Um, week 8 is about government intervention. So, in a free market system, when does it make sense for government to intervene? And what type of goods are essential in terms of, government intervention? Um, Ninth will be about production. Um, 10th, actually, it's going to be a pretty heavy week because we'll be tackling inflation. And there's a lot to talk about there in terms of inflation, particularly around price as well as wages. Um, and the last thing that we'll be discussing is about inequality. Well, we'll try to tackle it from a lens of equality, but we're essentially going to be talking about inequality and how that sort of works, right? And the underlying concepts there. Um, Beside the names of the weeks as well as the topics for that week, you can see which groups are supposed to present at which weeks. So I would suggest that you consider following this particular grouping and arrangement when you decide to pick your groups in Anima Space. Now, we're almost nearing the end. Don't worry, this is a pretty long starting video for all of us. But yeah, just some house rules, right? Um, this is particularly relevant for our asynchronous classes. So, sorry, for our synchronous classes, rather. So first, we will start the day with a prayer. Um, One group will be in charge per week. So go through it um, based on the sequence. So group one will be in charge of the prayer for week one and so on, right? So this coming Wednesday, I'm expecting the people of group one to lead our prayer. Once we've gone through all the groups, we'll start again from the first group, right? Um, Second, I'm expecting you guys to actively participate. I hope that you guys recite during discussions. It's perfectly okay. Discuss in the discussion forums and participate in the breakout session. So once we have those synchronous classes, I'll set up breakout sessions with leading questions for you guys to sort of grapple through and digest. And I hope you guys participate in those breakout sessions. There are a lot of ways by which you can learn from your peers. So, participating is a really important part of your learning. Read all the required readings for the week. Like I said, unlike other FDNE Econ um, classes, I'm requiring you guys to read both of the readings every week. I understand it's quite heavy, but that's sort of the point, right? We sort of need to establish the practice of reading complex materials for you guys. This is, in fact, a reading course. So I'd really like you guys to, dive deep and sink your teeth into the materials that I've selected for you guys. In terms of citations, you can use either APA or Harvard style. I'm okay with either. And lastly, and this is really important, guys, this is the one rule that I take very, very seriously. Like I said, I'm a very chill professor for the most part, but plagiarism is something that I cannot, um, you know, turn a blind eye to, right? It's a serious offense. I need you guys to make sure that, all the work that you're submitting to me are your own, are original, and they should be in accordance with the policies on academic integrity, right? What that essentially means for me, and a good barometer of that, is to make sure that any of your papers needs to be below 30% similarity when you submit it through Turnitin. So um, I think I forgot to mention it earlier on. All of your papers will be submitted online through AnimaSpace. Once you upload a particular paper or essay, um, it will check for similarity to other currently existing material, including papers that were submitted by previous batches, right? Um, and once your similarity goes above 30, that's going to be really questionable for me as your professor. And I'll have to sort of look into that and see where the similarities are and whether or not there's an intent to sort of misrepresent that somebody else's ideas are your own. So for me, that's the one rule that I'm hoping you guys abide by. Make sure you don't plagiarize. Um, I ensured that you can have unlimited submissions online on Turnitin using AnimaSpace. So one tip that I can give you guys is to maybe try submit your papers a day or two earlier. Submit the drafts initially just to see whether or not you're hitting 30% in terms of similarity. Um, Normally, really good papers and really good articles have a similarity rating of about 10 to 15%, right? So I'm actually being quite generous in terms of similarities for you guys. Okay, now let's go to week one tasks. And this is my last slide for you guys today. Um, now, I only have four tasks for you guys, and one task you already did. Um, this is to watch the intro video to FDNECon. This video, which will be uploaded in Studio. The second task that I'd require you guys to do is to go to the discussions tab and to introduce yourself in the first discussion post. So I created a discussion post in AnimaSpace. Just answer the questions I've put in there. I've also put a sample of how to introduce yourself when I introduce myself in the instructions. So just go through that. It won't take you a long time, right? Um, Third thing I'd require you guys to do is to choose your groups and group mates. So you can do this in the next 2 or 3 days, but then at the minimum, I'm expecting you guys to have your groups made already by Wednesday. So on Wednesday, we'll be setting up a portion of the class hours specifically to talk about your groupings and our assessments. And the last thing I'm requiring you guys is to skim read pages 1 to 45 of Mankiw's Principles of Economics. So as you can see, this video is maybe 40 minutes long. That essentially means that you have a good amount of time left for the day. Um, just go through Mankiw's Principles of Economics, pages 1 to 45. Don't be intimidated by the text. It's really just an introductory discussion on what Mankiw's 10 principles of economics are. And that's a really good sort of jumping off point for the semester. I'm not expecting that you guys understand it in its entirety, but at the minimum, I'm expecting you guys to be familiar with those concepts so that, once we sort of tackle these concepts more intently in the weeks to come, these become more familiar to you, right? And you can, um, recall them and constantly engage them over time. So yeah, that's it, guys. um, right now, the timestamp is about 38 minutes. It's pretty long. But um, our next set of lectures will be much longer and much meatier. I'm looking forward to meeting you guys on Wednesday. Yeah, and again, uh, welcome to the LSU and welcome to FDN Econ. See you guys.